Hi everyone, my name is PK, and here I have Luciana Bucater, who is a client of the Property Investment Accelerator. But the real reason that she's volunteered, and I'm very grateful that we're having this chat, is because she's been on a long property journey ever since she migrated to Australia from Brazil. She's made a lot of you could say, quote unquote, mistakes. She's made a lot of good decisions. Some of the mistakes have been buying house and land packages and almost being sucked into like investor groups where they sell you brand new stock. But as a new immigrant or a new investor, you don't necessarily know. But she's also done a lot of great things pre and post doing the course. And now she's really looking to take her property investing to the next level. So in the next sort of 20 minutes, we'll go through her journey. You guys will learn so much about what not to do, especially as novice property investors, and also a lot about what to do. This will be, I think, a really interesting episode because so many people get sucked in to like Facebook ads and to like what's easy when it comes to property investing, but what's easy is not normally, as it's too good to be true. Like it is not normally how it appears. So without further ado, Luciana, thank you so much for making time.
Thank you for having me, PK.
Okay, cool. Well, yeah, let's start from the start. I know we've already been talking, but you came from Brazil, and you and your partner, how did you start sort of getting onto the property ladder in Australia?
Sure. Yeah, we migrated. I migrated a little bit before him. He was my boyfriend back then. And the
Okay.
plan was always to go back. 2004. And what is it? Nearly 20 years, we're still here. And we will stay. Australia is home now. So yeah, back in Brazil, we did have, we own our house there, but in Brazil, because of the safety issue, apartments and closed condominiums are the way to go. And my parents never thought about investing in the real estate space. And it was really here in Australia that we ended up looking into it, and turns out that I'm passionate about it. So we migrated in 2004, but we moved, we lived in Sydney for some time, and then moved to Adelaide in 2007. And in 2009, that was when we bought our first property. You might remember that was after the global financial crisis. So there was quite a lot of government incentives for the building industry, the construction industry. So there was stamp duty exemptions, there were first-time home buyer grants and all sorts. So we ended up in 2009, we ended up buying a house and land package. And I remember clearly the sales pitch that we heard was that, well, when you buy a house and land package, you save on stamp duty because you buy a block of land, so you don't need to pay stamp duty on the house. You only pay stamp duty on the land, which was true.
Yeah.
But what happened was, it's very rare that a construction or a building ended up being finished on time. So it was extended. There was extended waiting there. And
Yeah.
while we were waiting, we were paying rent and we were
Right.
paying mortgage.
Right.
So we ended up saving, I can't remember, I think it was about 12 grand on stamp duty back then.
Mhm.
And I did a spreadsheet. I should have refreshed my memory before talking to you, but I think we ended up paying 14,000. We saved 12 grand on stamp duty, but then we pay 14 grand on extra mortgage payments and rent.
Right.
That was a bit of a trap. We got about 30 or 35 grand on a first-time home buyer grant. But when we look at it, really, the developer, whoever sold us the property, had a good bite on that incentive that we got. I remember we paid 380 for this house and land package. And I think it was, by the time we did some additions to it, we put air conditioner, we did landscaping, I did bits and pieces. And when we would get to the bank and get a valuation, it was still below the price. And we even took to the market once, but we ended up not selling it because we didn't want to sell at a loss. So really, we pay an overpriced. We bought an overpriced property.
So what was it? Because I know that a lot of people who are new to Australia, there's this kind of natural inclination to buy a house and land package, perhaps because it's like new. I don't know. Some cultures, they like new things. I mean, who doesn't like a new thing, right? It's new, it's clean, it's yours. Why were you sort of attracted to a house and land package versus buying, like, let's say, an established house and doing it up? Was there, what was your thought process?
The first time buyer grant was something that caught our attention. We did have a bit of a deposit, which we could have gone and bought an established home. But I think the 30 grand was something that caught our attention. The fact that we would save on stamp duty also caught our attention. I didn't like the building process, the waiting, the stress, the issues that we have, even the selection part. Some ladies and some guys, they like it, but it wasn't me. I didn't like spending my weekends going around and choosing tiles and fixtures. I didn't really like that. But yeah, it was mainly the financial incentive. But it didn't take me a long time to realize that it was really, it was back then seemed the best option, but it wasn't really the best option. And I know, like we were saying before, for some people arriving here with not a huge deposit, it might be an option. And I'm not saying probably the terrible option and please don't do it. It might be an option for some, but as long as you made an informed decision, I don't really regret buying this property because we managed to get equity out of it 5 times. But if I knew what I know now, I probably would have gone for an established home.
Right. Yeah, I mean, there's pros and cons to everything. And I think if we fast forward to 2023, those building timelines that you're referring to and the maybe headache and complication or stress is like, expounded, or it's like exaggerated, probably like 5-fold or 6-fold. All these builders are going bust, timelines are extending, the budgets are not really sticking to budget. There's no fixed price contracts anymore. So it's like, I know that a lot of people that we're watching, they're new on Australian shores and they're like, oh, here's like a perfect house. On the page, it looks great, right? On the picture, it looks great.
Yeah.
But it's going to take a long time to happen, a lot of stress to happen. And with the land to asset ratio being low, perhaps it's not going to be the best decision. But like you said, you don't regret it because property is like a very forgiving asset class, at least in Australia. Over the long term, you've taken equity out multiple times. So that's all credit for you actually doing something rather than nothing. And just to kind of paint a picture, like, if you don't mind sharing, what do you do professionally, or what did you do back then, or your partner, just to sort of understand?
Yeah, my partner, he's a vet. Back then, he was still going through his exams to get his degree valid here. So he was working as a vet nurse. Now he's got his own business. And I work for the government here. I am a research officer. I do research on freshwater fish ecology.
Oh, yeah. Okay, very interesting.
But the passion is the passion is in the real estate space.
Sure. Well, it's research, right? Research here, research there. It's that sort of analytical thinking and mindset and approach that is very transferable. So you had that first house. What did you do next?
Before we move on, can I just mention something, PK?
Yeah, go for it.
We did have a deposit, and one of the reasons why we went for the first time home buyer grant was so we would avoid pay LMI. And now, knowing what I know now, I would look back and I would say, wow, we saved a few thousands, but in the long run, we should have made a lot more money, so it's really false economy, that idea of avoiding paying LMR. Obviously, if we can, save that, it's a good thing to do because we are not paying insurance for the bank to cover the bank, not to cover ourselves, but not to the price of getting a less ideal investment.
Right, right.
So
Yeah, there
yeah,
was a question posted on the Facebook group just this morning. Someone asked, it was a good question. They said, should I buy one property without paying lender's mortgage insurance, paying 20, 30% deposit, or should I get two properties paying lender's mortgage insurance? And, and for me, it was like, as long as you can afford the cash flow of, paying, let's say, a 10% deposit, 12% deposit, two properties is better than one because you have two properties growing, so long as you know what you're doing and you're buying in the right areas. But like you said, LMI is your friend, and it actually gets, as you know, capitalized into the loan amount. It's not like extra cash you need to pay, and it's also deductible over 5 years from a tax deduction perspective. So, I mean, people should think about it. There's pros and cons, but if you're starting your portfolio and you want to be a property investor, I don't know if at this point you knew you wanted to be a property investor, but if you do know, then go for LMI.
that's right. And for medical professionals, we found out later as well when we went and bought our second property, medical professionals, they can have, they don't need to pay 20% to avoid LMI.
Yeah.
Some banks, they do 10%.
Yeah.
So it's it's another perk as
Do
well.
do vets qualify for that? Oh,
Yeah,
cool.
yeah,
I didn't know
yeah.
that.
So when we bought our second property,
Yeah.
we didn't have, or we had nothing, but we fell in love for the property, and we ended up using equity from this house and borrow money from family, and we avoid paying LMI because he was already fully qualified vet, and then
Nice.
banks would lend us money without charging LMI up to 90%.
Nice,
Yeah.
nice. So the second property you bought with the help of equity, and you bought that also in Adelaide, in Seaton, wasn't it? Like a big piece of land?
Yes, it's a 920 square meter block of land, and it had a house that was built in the mid 60s, but was renovated by an Italian couple in mid 90s.
Okay.
So big, as you know, knowing Italians, big
kitchen?
lounge, big kitchen, big party area, big cooking top. They were just a couple, and they have 5 burners.
Yeah, big stainless steel one.
So and I found it by accident. I was looking for a place for my mom to buy, and I entered this house. The agent, there was no one there. The agent was on the phone, did everything to keep me there and keep me interested, even offered to sell the first house, the one that we bought it as a land house and land package. And yeah, he did everything to help us to get that house, and we did, and it was a great investment. Was an accident, but was a great investment. My husband agreed to that purchase even without seeing the house. He just saw the size of the block and he said, "Yep, let's go for it."
Yeah. And that was in what year?
That was in 2012. The first one was in 2009. Finished building in mid 2010. And then this one we bought in 2012.
2012. Awesome.
Yeah. Coincidentally, every time we had a child, we bought a property.
I don't know how the banks like that.
Not very much. So we bought before I went part-time, before we add another dependent on our account.
So did you move into that, or was that always an investment property?
No, we lived there for nearly 10 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and we renovated it. We loved, and we thought our next properties would be investment properties, and that one will be the one that we would live for the rest of our lives. But never say never, right?
Yeah.
So we lived there for 10 years. But during COVID, or before that, we bought, I was pregnant with our third child, and someone came to us and offered a nice unit in a boutique apartment in a new estate, not far from town, near supermarkets, cafe, express line to town, and no need to pay any deposit. So we got equity again from that house, the first one. Got equity again and bought that unit. Big lesson learned there for us. My husband was completely against it. Okay. And I was the one who pushed for it. I said, we have nothing to lose, we don't need to pay deposit, There was a year of guaranteed rent as well. So we have nothing to use. Let's go for it.
Yeah.
And we had it for about 7 years. Was an area where there was a jockey club. So there was vast area. And guess what happened as well as our unit, many townhouses, or the apartments. We even bought with a view to the hills, and didn't take long for another apartment to be built there.
Okay.
So 7 years forward, we sold the apartment for 20% more than what we paid for, with the help of COVID.
Oh,
if it wasn't for COVID,
that includes the COVID boom.
That includes the COVID boom.
Right.
So you know how bad it was.
Right. Does your husband always kind of say, should have listened to me on that one?
Yes. and a big lesson learned is we decided that when we are not both on the same page, we are not doing business. If it's to buy a house or a car, or even to sell something, if we're not both on the same page, we probably should sit on it for a bit and not just jump to conclusions and ahead of ourselves.
Good relationship advice, I'd say, for most people.
I would like to think so.
Nice, man. Nice. Okay, so there was a kind of lesson learned with the house and land package and the Seaton 900 square meters. You kicked that one out of the park and you enjoyed it. Your kids grew up in that. Sounds like a terrific decision. The apartment, and the jockey club, perhaps not so much. And once again, I would say that's like a common, if I can, be audacious enough to say, common mistake that people make is, they buy these apartments because what can go wrong? Like they don't need any deposit, it can only go up, right? And then we'll settle it and happy days, but it doesn't always work out like that, because there's 100, 200, 300 new apartments, townhouses that can always go up. So it sounds like you've kind of gone through the ordeal of fire and learned the lessons a little bit of the hard way, but nonetheless, the lessons have been learned. And then there was one more lesson left to be learned. What did you do next?
Yes, there was. So the apartment we bought in 2017, and we had, our third child, and we did nothing in the real estate space for a few years. But then in 2020, I started getting itchy again. But my partner, my husband, pulled me back and said, hang on a minute, before we make another big purchase, let's go and travel Australia. So we bought a camper trailer instead of buying a house. We bought a camper trailer. We bought a bigger car. And we left in June 2021, right in the middle of COVID still. So instead of going to the eastern states, we went up through the middle of Australia, and then we came down the WA coast.
So you escaped the lockdowns by just going through around Australia?
Yeah, we had a couple of lockdowns here, but it was only a couple of weeks. It was quite enjoyable, let's put it this way, even the lockdowns that we have here. And yes, we escaped most of issues during COVID, but when there was a time that there were a few cases in the NT, and then WA closed the border to the people coming from the NT. Yes. We were there. We had to sleep by the border one night. And then we managed to find accommodation, and we have to isolate. We had to be in lockdown in a beautiful place called Kununurra by the Kununurra Lake. So that was a pretty good lockdown.
Nice. That's you and your husband and 3 kids, right?
3 kids. That's right.
What an experience.
And then, sorry, what was the question?
I was just saying that would have been a great experience.
It was a very good experience. So when we came down, even during the process, we start looking into getting our kids to Waldorf Steiner School. And because of COVID, we managed to secure a spot for all 3 of them, which was something important to us. We wouldn't like to remove our kids from their friendship group and from their school, and then not letting them go to the school that we were aiming for while they were seeing their brothers and sisters doing that.
Right.
So all three of them got into the school, and we had to move out of our home that we thought we would live forever.
Okay.
We planted fruit trees there, and I thought our grandkids would climb those fruit trees. So
that's the hardest thing, like when you have a garden, like we have a garden here as well. When you have a garden that you've nurtured and you've cherished and you've actually sowed the seeds, you can never sell that house. I don't care. I don't care about money. If I planted that like pomegranate tree or that, guava tree, I'm never leaving.
Oh, guava!
Yeah.
Guava.
Yeah, because you don't get a guava so easily in Australia, so we have to plant our own guava tree.
That's right. So that's the thing. It's because it's a big block. People say, "Oh, you can build 3 or 4 houses here," and I always say, "No, I want to see my grandkids climbing the fruit trees that we planted." So yeah, in going back, so the kids got into, when we came back from the trip, we had 6 weeks in that house. We didn't unpack. We basically kept everything that were in boxes and just pack what were in boxes and got ready to move to another beautiful place in Adelaide called Ojinga Beach, which is south of Adelaide near McLaren Vale. If you know,
really
McLaren
nice
Vale.
place.
Yeah. So we moved there and we were renting for some time. But during that time, we were thinking, do we reinvest? Do we buy something for us to live, or do we buy an investment property? So that's when we almost made our fourth mistake. I joined an investment property group, and that was a bit of education, but I think the focus was finding properties for the members of this group. And for some time, while we were sorting out our finances, because my husband is self-employed, and being away for 6 months didn't help, or nearly 6 months didn't help. So while we were sorting the finances, I was going through the educational part of the membership, or the group, I should say. And then when the time came that there was a property found or kept for us, ended up being a townhouse. That one wasn't a housing land, was already completely finished. But it was in a small block of land, townhouse, in a group, from memory, I think it was in a group of 48.
Right.
Then there was that deja vu moment. Hang on a minute. It seems like we're getting ourselves into the same situation that we did when we bought the unit, they talk about the demand and supply ratio, but where is the shortage here? We're talking about 48 townhouses. So in an area in Queensland, which you're very familiar, PK, in Ipswich. So husband wasn't on board. And so I said, okay, I'll dig out a little bit more. I'll do my research. And the price that we were asked for that townhouse was the same price of a 4 or 5 bedroom house in Ipswich, in the same area.
Wow.
So yeah, we had to say a big no. And around that time, a good friend of mine who I met when I first arrived in Australia, she sent me one of your videos. And then I clearly remember you saying, no one cares more about your money than you do. And that was really a wake-up call for me. I said, I've got to learn how to do it myself, because whoever is selling me something, they're selling us something. They've got their own agenda. So that's how I joined. It took me a good couple of months, but my husband is very supportive, and he said, yep, if you want to learn this, let's do it. I'm sure we'll benefit from it. So I joined your course in December last year. I remember talking to Samir, and ever since I've been restructuring our portfolio. So we sold the unit, and we ended up buying our home somewhere that we're living. I'm sure will be a great investment in the future, because it's in Ojinga. It's far enough from Adelaide that people will go and spend the weekend. And yeah, so it is a place that we are calling home, but we've got itchy feet. We don't know how long we will stay there, and if we don't stay there, will be a great investment. So I use the system that you teach to buy our principal place of residence as well.
Right. And Aldinga Beach has always been, I mean, not that I've been in the property game for 30, 40 years, but in Adelaide, Aldinga Beach has always been a nice area for the locals to have like a holiday home or actually to live. And I think in the last 5 years, maybe 7, 8 years, it's becoming more and more popular, even with people outside of Adelaide. They're cluing on that it's actually not so far from Adelaide proper, like the CBD, and there's the beach there, and there's the great lifestyle, the coffee shops, etc. So, I mean, the yield from an investment perspective, if you said, oh, PK, I had 500K, 600K to spend, I probably wouldn't say like go buy there. But from a PPR perspective, like, it's hard to beat a location like that with the growth drivers if you don't care about the cash flow so much because you're living there. So that's, I want to ask you in a second, like how you built trust to do my course, because you had done this other course, right? I want to ask you that, but I just want to make this statement as well, because I feel that a lot of people like you, and we get these questions like every single day in the Facebook group, guys, what do you think about this company? What do you think about that company? What do you think about this company? And they all, I won't use their names because that's not the right thing to do, but really, there are thousands of companies in Australia, and they run really well polished Facebook ads and YouTube ads. And really, all of them, 99% of them, they sell you something brand new, whether it's an apartment or a condominium, like a townhouse that you're referring to in Ipswich, or a house and land package. And the reason they sell you that is because they get $30,000 to $40,000 from a developer to sell you that. Okay. And as a new migrant, you kind of, I mean, as a new migrant, you're kind of finding your way, not that you were new, but at this time, but you're kind of finding your way through Australian real estate, and you don't understand how the inner workings and sort of the underbelly of Australian real estate works. But it's kind of really sad because, like you said, you're buying a townhouse in Ipswich for the same price as a normal house with much more land. And so that's just like a terrible investment. But they front load their programs with a course, right? And the course, I mean, not that I've done any of these courses, presumably teach you stuff that's very logical and kind of points you in the direction to what they're doing for you. So you'll, by the time finish the course, you're like, oh yeah, this is a great idea. Let me do this. So I guess I just wanted to put that out there for everyone as a warning. Anyone who's trying to sell you a brand new house and land package, apartment, townhouse, I think you should run, or if not run, at least briskly walk away while considering your options. Nothing wrong with buying something new, but do it yourself. Buy a piece of land and build on it yourself if you really want to. The question, coming back to where I was referring to, how did you build trust? Or perhaps your husband, because now you've kind of been burnt a few times already. How did you build trust in doing another course, and a much more expensive course, perhaps, that is mine?
By then, PK, your course, obviously, it was a big chunk of money coming out of our bank account, but it's similar to the LMI. It is something that in the long run, it was the best decision that we made. We didn't want to save up the money for your course and then keep making mistakes. Yes. That was the first point. I followed you for a couple of months because I really need to be able to, one, trust you, and two, convince my partner, because otherwise, by then we had already agreed that if we were on the same page, we wouldn't make it. Mm-hmm. So I had to convince him. So I followed you, and some of the stuff that you teach helped me understanding why the mistakes I made were mistakes. So for instance, the unit, when you talk about renters and you have that threshold, you don't want many, I don't know if I should mention the percentage that we use as a criteria, but, we don't want a suburb with many investment properties and many renters, because that's competition, right? So I mentioned that there was 1 year guarantee. For 6 months, there were so much stock in the market. For 6 months, our unit was vacant. We were obviously getting the rent from the company, But after 1 year, that was on us.
Yeah.
So we have made mistakes. And when I start going through some of your contents, that made completely sense why you were teaching it, because we had experienced it. So that helped a lot, getting trust in you, and also getting my husband to trust me into enrolling into your course.
Yeah, I mean, when
does it answer your question?
No, it does. Like when you've been through those issues and troubles, and then when someone is like, you shouldn't do these particular things, you're like, oh, damn it, that's the exact things that I've done. It kind of is like, it just clicks into gear like a jigsaw puzzle. You just connect. Anyway, I don't wish that you had gone through that, but at least it served a purpose, and in that way it's good. And I want to talk about now, if you want, you obviously are restructuring your portfolio, and I think you're looking to buy in your SMSF, and we can talk about that. But I just want to commend you as well and congratulate you, because I think you've also bought, is it multiple properties for your friends or family, one of the two?
Yeah, I've helped friends and family. In fact, the house where I am now, my brother's house, he was in Sydney, so I was the one who did the inspections and help. And people come for advice. I have physically helped some people, but I also helped people just by talking to them.
Right.
And because we've done, we are not the only Brazilians here in Adelaide who have done it, but because we've done what some people would like to do, build their portfolio, usually people come and talk to us.
Right. Right. So that gives me a lot of satisfaction knowing that, someone who I've helped in some small way is kind of using those skills and experience and knowledge, because knowledge is truly power, to kind of help other people, whether it's directly or indirectly. Is the Brazilian, I don't know so much about like the Brazilian culture, but like in Australia, as you know, everyone loves property. Is it like that in Brazil? Does everyone want to be a property investor, or is it when they come to Australia, then they get the property bug?
A bit of both. There are people, not in our family, but there are people with many properties in Brazil. And obviously, those are the ones who come here and they want to hit the ground running. They really want to get into the property space as soon as possible. But there are people like us, like myself and my husband, we decide to become property investors here in Australia, because it's such a good market. We have so many benefits. Really, once we get our head around, it's not a hard game. It's not difficult to make.
Right. And so what's kind of next for you in terms of your own property investing?
We are looking to buy in the SMSF.
Yep.
Because I got that right. Because we maxed out our borrowing capacity. We want to keep buying probably in Queensland, regional Queensland. But yeah, we need to sort out our finances first. And yeah, just keep moving forward, just watching the equities on our investment properties increasing, and just keep moving forward as soon as possible.
Amazing. And I know that you've said so many times now that you've kind of developed a real deep passion for research. I mean, you're already a researcher, but in the real estate game, could you kind of, I'm putting you on the spot here, none of this is kind of scripted, but could you give maybe 3 top tips, or from your own experience, what's like 2 or 3 big lessons that you can give to someone who, let's use the Brazil example, is like, it's 2023, they've just arrived in Australia from Brazil in 2022 or 2023, they want to buy their first or second investment property. What's a few, like, let's say you're having a chat with them over coffee, what's a few pieces of advice that you can give them?
Right. First of all, I would say don't follow anyone's advice. Just do your homework.
I like that.
Because, like I said before, people have their own agenda, right? The next one, I think when we come from Brazil, we think we're going to buy our forever home house, and not always we can buy the house that we want to live for the rest of our lives. So it's probably better to buy something is small or old, or, you know, there are trade-offs to be made. You know, we won't buy the Taj Mahal next time we are buying a property here, right? So it's better to get into the market rather than trying to find your perfect property, because then we will just keep you out of the market for longer. And the longer you are out of the market, the harder it is to get into it. And the next one is, you asked for 3, right? So I've given you 2.
If you want, yeah.
I've got one that I've been using a fair bit in this hot market. There is the cost of missing opportunities, right? Obviously, we don't want to jump and on anything and just, you know, make bad purchases like I did, bad deals. But sitting on our backside and do nothing is also, there is also a cost associated to it. So people who are on the market for the last 2 or 3 years waiting for it to crash, you know, they are coping with a huge cost of missing out on opportunities, missing out of jumping and getting to the market.
Right. Yeah, that's great advice. And I especially loved your first piece of advice, like, don't take advice from anyone. And that's kind of like ironic. It's like, well, why am I listening to this in the first place? But I think it's great advice because, I mean, take advice, right? But then filter it, like be like, okay, what's this person trying to sell? Is it PK trying to sell a course? Is it a buyer's agent trying to sell their service? Is it some spruiker selling something else? Like, we can learn lessons from everyone, regardless of their agenda, and then make your own investment thesis, right? Like, don't just copy my investment thesis blindfolded. You know, putting a blindfold on doesn't serve anyone, because no one, like you said before, no one cares about you. Like, ultimately, no one cares about you as much as you do. So you need to actually learn. You need to actually figure it out. And I think that, unfortunately, some people have to learn that the hard way. And, you know, it's better to learn it than never learn it. But if we can serve people by, you know, sharing these stories that you have, and hopefully they don't have to learn it the hard way, they can kind of be like, all right, yeah, maybe house and land's not the best way. Maybe unit's not the best way. Maybe giving my money to someone who's going to buy me a brand new townhouse or something is not the best way. At least think about it. I think nothing can replace education. Nothing can replace you investing in yourself, because I think you probably come to the same conclusion, Luciana and your husband, right? Like, the best investment is the best real estate is you. You have to invest in your own knowledge. That's really the prime real estate that we need to first get under control before we can go out and try and make $1 million. But I really appreciate you coming on. And yeah, there's something to be said. There's something to be said about just like a real life story, because I can get 1 million clients, not 1 million. I can get hundreds of clients here to say, oh yeah, we achieved X, Y, Z in X, Y years, and, you know, it's all good. But these are the real stories. These are the real stories that I think people should know of. So I really appreciate it. Was there anything lastly that you wanted to say?
I just want to say about the new houses and the housing land packages. It might be the only way someone with a small deposit will get into the market. It's fine, as long as they are aware what they're getting into, you know, and that they know that's not the best deal, but that's what's feasible, what's possible at that time. And I also get that, and I do have friends who don't have the time, the patience, or the passion that we do, and they are not going to educate themselves. So they will end up engaging with people, you know, either an investment group or a buyer's agent. So even if someone decided that they don't want to educate themselves and they want to contract out someone else to find them property, make sure you do your homework as well, because you want to engage with someone who is ethical and has your best interest in their heart, not a kickback from a developer or something like that.
Yeah, no, well said. Homework must be done this way or that way. Homework must be done. I know you're super passionate in this sort of next chapter, Luciana, of being one of those ethical people. So that's fantastic. And obviously I'll share this across all platforms, also my Facebook group, and I'll tag you. So guys, if you want to reach out with Luciana and just pick her, I don't know if you want to do this, or you want to pick her mind, or just kind of, you know, have a conversation with her. She's a nice person. As you can see, she's got nothing, like no agenda, nothing to kind of like shove down your throat. So yeah, please use that opportunity. But thank you so much again, Luciana, and congratulations to obviously both you and your husband. And you know, it's nice that your 3 kids will grow up and, you know, not have to struggle because of the hard work that their parents have put in.
Thank you so much, PK. Thanks for the opportunity. It was nice talking to you.
And thank you everyone for watching and listening. I really appreciate you. Thank you for being part of this community. In the YouTube client results playlist, there's more than 100 of these, and I honestly, like I always say, I don't care whether you do the course or not, but go through them, watch them, listen to them, absorb them, because you'll learn so very much. Okay, there's no excuse for not being educated. Thank you so much. Hit the subscribe button, hit the like button. Thank you again, Luciana.
Thanks, PK.